Hey everyone, I hope that you're enjoying the Conscious Parenting newsletter. Today I've got a new camera, so hopefully this is going to work. We're going to try and use the whiteboard. Hopefully it'll all stay in focus and you'll be able to see exactly what I'm drawing, because this is going to be really important and I want you to see how this diagram sort of represents an important point that I was discussing with a new friend that I met. There's a lovely place down in Elephant and Castle which you should definitely check out if you're around London. It's called Metropolitan Mercato, and there's like little food pop-up stores and a really nice outdoors at the back in the garden so that you can sit out, you can have a drink, they make their own beer and their own cider, and you can just hang out and chill. Now I happened to bump into this young woman who was fantastically devoted to her own journey, and we had a really interesting chat about consciousness, about childhood experiences, and about her understanding of her inner world. So what we were talking about specifically was how to reach into wisdom that you don't already have, and she was worried that she might not know exactly where to seek that wisdom from, and that when she had people who had advised her, she'd always taken that advice willingly, and that she had sought out good advisors so that she could feel confident that she was doing the right thing and being in the right way. So what I was talking to her about was how we can also search within for our inner wisdom, and she understood this already, but one of the points that we were discussing that I was wondering if it might be useful to make a YouTube video about it so that everybody could understand is that we can tap into a wisdom that is beyond our life, and we have this wisdom within us. It's a bit of a spiritual concept, but it's actually makes a lot of sense once you think about it, that there's eternal wisdom that you're trying to kind of access, and we are just a moment in time right now, but we're part of this eternal wisdom. And what I'm really trying to explain to you is that although you might not know everything, you might not know everything that you know, you might unconsciously have picked up things, beliefs, patterns and understanding that doesn't necessarily come from your moment in time. You are a product of all of the generations before you, and there's this eternal wisdom that's been passed down from generation to generation. Perhaps you could think about evolution and DNA and how we don't really cause evolution consciously, but that sort of evolves by itself, and maybe it's natural selection that causes that. So to bring it back to the spiritual element of eternal wisdom, perhaps you could think about it in the psychological element and space, that we have picked up psychological beliefs and psychological patterns and understandings from generations before us that we perhaps are not even aware of, that we are so distant and that we would have not picked up consciously and would not have been passed down from generation consciously. The confusing part about this is that actually we can extrapolate into the future as well. So it's not just the past generations that we can tap into that wisdom, we can also tap into the future generations' wisdom, and that's not supposed to be some crazy ethereal theory. What I'm thinking is more that within our own personality we can experience ourselves as who we are today, but we can also recognize that we are inside of us, we also have the ages that we've previously been. So I'm 31 right now, but I also have a personality inside me who is 26, because I can tap into that person, I can access the memories of that version of myself, and I can start to understand what that person was like, what that person was going through, and they are simultaneously me right now. It's there is no difference between 26-year-old me and 31-year-old me, apart from that they're just a totally different person, and I'm just an evolved version of that person. It's a bit like if you wanted to go and live, me being 31, I'm sure a lot of you are adults, but let's say you wanted to go and live like a 16-year-old's lifestyle. It's it doesn't even appeal. It's that the things that we might have understood and valued about the world, we just aren't that person anymore, and that person's almost like had to go through an ego death, and we've had to shed those versions of ourselves as we've grown. And there's also this 7-year-old version of us, and probably even younger, if we can tap into all of those energies and emotions and memories and psychological versions of ourselves. There's every single stage of our development, and so we can extrapolate forwards as well. So me being 31, I can also access the future version of myself when I'm 41 and ask myself, like, what will 41-year-old Rupin want 31-year-old Rupin to do right now? What would 41-year-old Rupin need? What would he value, and what would he perhaps consider to be the defining pillars of who he is? Now, I might not get it right, I might not know all of that, but that's what we're tapping into. We're tapping into that wisdom, and we're not going to know exactly what everything that 41-year-old Rupin is going to experience, go through and be, because some of the stuff is going to be the random experiences. It's going to be the stuff that he goes through between now and the next decade that will sculpt who that version of myself is. It will sculpt everything. It will warp and change that version of me. But I can make some assumptions, and I can tap into that version and almost like set a goal of who I want to be, and then I can see the channel between me right now and me then, and I can see like how to navigate between now and then by tapping into that wisdom. And if you can also imagine that there's a 61-year-old version and an 81-year-old version, so there's all of these versions of me that exist psychologically inside, and I can tap into them to access that wisdom. And what I want you to understand is that I can do that backwards through the generations as well. It's not something that, you know, I do regularly, but if you were lost and you didn't know exactly who you were and how you were going to act and be, and you wanted to look inside to kind of define yourself and to figure out your roots, you could tap into that knowledge and that wisdom which stretches back through the generations. And one place that you might like to see this as a graphic kind of visual representation is in the film Moana, where the grandmother is the stingray. She becomes her tattoo. She has a stingray tattoo. She accesses the energy of the water, and then when she dies, she enters the water, and the water then responds to Moana's calls when she is lost and when she's not feeling like she has enough guidance. She taps into the energy and she taps into the wisdom from previous generations to understand A, herself, but B, like what to do in this moment. So I'm going to draw this visualization that hopefully makes a lot of sense. So this is, you know, us now, and then we've got the past, so this would be the little baby version, and then we've also got both of our parents which we can access through, and then we've got old, this is me with a walking stick, that's the old future version of me that we can try to encourage ourselves not to live as if we cared about that version of ourselves. The negative way to say that is that we are not living just in the now. We're not only living for this moment right here, because this isn't the only moment that we exist. We exist along the whole timeline, and then there's also the future timelines, which might be, you know, the little baby versions. Who knows what's going to happen? Not something that, this is not a prediction, it's just you can imagine that there might be people who, there might be future generations from all of us, from you and from me, that we might want to understand that they are going to gain wisdom from us. So actually that probably helps to really understand it, right? Because you are sending your wisdom through them into the future, and you're projecting wisdom out into the next generation, and that's creating this eternal wisdom. It's some of the stuff you will consciously be passing down as eternal wisdom, but some of the stuff you might unconsciously be passing down. And I'm sure my friend won't mind me mentioning, I won't say his name, but he's terrified of flying. He's really scared of flying, and he's going to Budapest very soon, and he's been messaging me saying how worried he is about the flight and that he's not sure if he's going to make it, but he's really glad because his friends have decided not to fly to Miami based on his fear, based on his anxiety. So he does have children, he has a child, and his child won't experience flying on a regular basis, and when the conversation of flying comes up, it's going to be a conversation that is surrounded with anxiety and surrounded with fear. So we can really see how perhaps this might get passed down as wisdom, and the wisdom would be that flying is dangerous, or that you can die when you go on an airplane, or that you shouldn't go on an airplane. That's the wisdom. It's not necessarily something that I agree with, but that's something that my friend wholeheartedly believes and agrees with, and resentfully and reluctantly flies for a holiday for me when I wanted him to, and I really appreciated that. But I think that was like the second time that he'd ever been on an airplane, so this would be the third time. It's a real phobia, it's a real significant fear for him. So perhaps we'll wait and see how, as children interact with that wisdom, they might decide that it's not something that they agree with. They might be able to look at that wisdom and go, that's not something that I align with, and so they might choose to fly themselves, but they might adopt this as wisdom, and they might not know that they've adopted it. They might not be able to recognize that they have inherited a fear of flying. Now, it might not even come up, right? Because they might not go for a holiday, they might not fly, they might choose not to. And it would be like if somebody had a fear of dogs and they always cross the road if they saw a dog coming, but their child didn't know that they were crossing the road because of the dog. They just thought they were crossing the road because that's what they were supposed to be doing. And next thing you know, they get into the habit of crossing the road every time that there's a dog, unconsciously. They don't realize that they've picked up that wisdom. So that's what we can look at in terms of future generations adopting wisdom, and that will really help you to understand that our wisdom comes from the past, that our wisdom doesn't come from entirely from our own experiences, that we inherit quite a lot of wisdom from our parents, but our parents have inherited it from their parents, and their parents have inherited it from their parents, and before you know it, you're like, there might be some really, really unconscious patterns, beliefs, and wisdom that just doesn't come up. It just never comes up, and you don't know that you fully believe in that and fully align with that. But when it does come up, you might have an opinion on it, or you might have a concern about something, and then you could wonder, like, where does this come from? Like, why am I so intent on this when I haven't ever experienced it in my life? And you ask your parents and they haven't experienced it in their life, but it might be something that just your family has avoided, or it might be something that your family's just always done naturally and it's just normal. Like the Moana situation, Moana's dad is afraid of the water, but Moana has inherited the wisdom of her ancestors, and even her father is a sailing person, he's a water dwelling person, but he's afraid of the water because of the darkness. There's like a storyline that's there, but Moana inherits that wisdom even though her dad tries to get in the way from it. It's like embedded in her, and that she doesn't know where it comes from, she doesn't know why it's there, and her grandmother does. Her grandmother knows the secrets and knows the truth of her inherited nature and who she truly is on an unconscious level. So hopefully this helps. My new friend from Mercato, we discussed this really well, and probably even better than I have done right now. I think it was a really nice conversation that we were having about the eternal wisdom, and I feel like she got a lot of value out of it. So I hope that you guys got as much value or more. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this video, whether you understand this eternal wisdom argument and suggestion and theory. Like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for notifications so you can stay up to date on all the upcoming videos. We've got loads of YouTubes coming and really want you to stay in touch. Please get in contact. My email is Rupin, RUPIN, at consciousparentingcoach.co.uk. If you'd like to know any more information, or if you wanted to have a chat, we can have a discussion and we can talk about the inner wisdom and how to connect to that and how to enter your energy that is eternal. So give me a shout, just shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you all, and I will catch up with you very soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.